As the Israelite soldiers lined up, standing their ground, you couldn't tell from the look on their noble faces which of them truly believed God's promises and which of them simply didn't. But this very day, that belief would be tested to the point of death. The Israelites took their stand in the fields as the Philistines marched slowly towards them. Shamar, an Israelite warrior, found himself in a field of lentils. He could feel his heart racing, the sweat on the palm of his hand as he gripped his sword, thoughts flashing through his head as the Philistines moved closer and closer. As they advanced, the Israelites readied themselves. And then it started. The cutting and thrashing of men in the heat of battle, while all around the screams of anger, pain and death ripped through the air, as if somehow trying to deaden the sound of their bloodthirsty swords. At first, the Philistines were repelled, but moments later they came back fiercer and stronger than before. How were the Israelites going to be able to stand up against such a powerful opposition? How were they going to be able to stand their ground? Shamar had no time to think or reason it through. All he could do was believe the promises of God, no more, and yet no less. God would keep his promise if they stood firm. In a moment's pause in battle, Shamar was able to look around to his own men, and to his horror, he realised that most of them had been pushed back under the sheer weight of the Philistine attack, some even being killed as they turned their back on the enemy and ran. Of those who remained, fear and exhaustion were beginning to take their toll, but still no time to think, as yet another wave of Philistines swept into the lentil field, and Shamar found his sword and shield, thrusting and protecting, slashing and pushing. No time to rest, more dead bodies, then another chance to look around. He was alone, all his allies gone. They hadn't believed the promises of Almighty God, but still no time to rest. Screaming and fighting, thrashing and struggling, wave after wave, hour upon weary hour. All day long, Shamar stood his ground and would not be moved. Though his body was racked with exhaustion and drenched in sweat, he stood firm. And yet, in truth, all day long, Shamar stood in the presence of God himself. When he was exhausted, the Lord strengthened him. Though he struggled to even lift his sword, he knew God, he believed in God, he loved God, and he fought on. Of all those who started that day, only Shamar remained. And as evening fell, the Philistines retreated, unable to overcome one man who believed. And so, the great God of heaven won a glorious victory that day through one man who believed and stood firm. You might say it was standing room only, because for Shamar, following God meant there was no room for sitting, no room for resting, no room for running, and no room for hiding. It was standing room only.